What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to bring you my long-term 6-month review. This is the 2016 M1 MacBook Pro. Doing this outside because it's a nice day out, so I thought I would get a quick review and video this up. Just give you an idea of who it may be for, who it may not be for. A little bit of background on what I had before and why this is going to stick around with me for the rest of basically till AppleCare runs out, then I'll get a different one. So previously I had like a ThinkPad laptop. I had a 14-inch and a 15-inch, and then I had a pretty beefy desktop. So I always had the two systems set up, and it got rather annoying when we had a toddler, and I was mainly just using the laptop, which wasn't very good for video editing, especially the 14-inch. It's like an X1 Yoga. It wasn't very good for video editing. It's not that it wasn't good, it just took forever. So and the desktop was in the basement, so I didn't like that because I use this often on the kitchen counter. Probably not the best spot for it. But I bought this, sold the other two, and I've been doing one system setup ever since. I don't actually use my monitor and stuff in the basement all that often, just because of how good the screen is, which I'll get into down the line. So this is $24.99. I did buy AppleCare for it because I am not, while I'm careful with my stuff, I use this in the kitchen a lot, probably more than I should, right by the sink, which is not good usually for electronics. I try to keep it this far away as I can, but it gets all kinds of stuff on it, from toast crumbs to applesauce to basically anything else. A little bit of water here or there, but not a lot. I try to keep it as clean and away from things that will damage it as possible. So it's going to cost you about $3,000 when you do tax and AppleCare if you went that line. But you're going to pay $24.99. I think you can get it for $21.79, I think, in the outlet if you want a refurbished unit directly from Apple, which I would recommend also. So build quality and just overall issues, I've had no issues with it. Build quality is still excellent. Haven't had to notice any weird marks or blemishes on it. It still basically looks new. It's one big piece of aluminum, so it does pretty well with withstanding things. The only thing I have noticed is that because the keyboard's black, it can get a little bit dirty from time to time. You'll notice more crumbs on it, where in the past it kind of blended into the metal of the screen. The screen does get fingerprints fairly often. I have noticed that a little bit more than my ThinkPads, which both had matte displays, so they were a little bit less prone to getting fingerprints on them. So this is a glossy display, as you can probably see. It's pretty bad by using it out in the sun, but that's a different story, which we will get into. So performance is excellent on this thing. Video editing, photo editing, which is 99% of what I do with it, besides your general daily use stuff. I don't usually game. I do play Civilization, I think 5 from time to time, and it runs it without any issue. It's faster than my 10-core desktop was and my 980 Ti when it comes to video and photo editing. For video editing, it's very close. The desktop was almost the same. Sometimes it was a little quicker, just depending on if you were using DaVinci Resolve or I use Adobe the Premiere Pro. I use that often. But for photo editing, it's very quick. Online with my 10-core. I think I had an Intel 10850K processor in there, so I've been really happy with that, the overall general performance of it. Just being able to edit photo and video anywhere, on the couch, while I'm eating, on the kitchen, outside. The only negative with the outside thing is that this screen is super glossy and you have to really jack the brightness up on it. But besides that, I do like that flexibility. It's got USB connectivity, so I like most of it. It has 3 USB-C Thunderbolt ports, headphone jack, HDMI 2.0, I believe. I do not believe it's 2.1. So I have looked into getting a high refresh rate monitor, but I'm not sure even if it will be able to display that out. SD card, so you have all the ports you need. You do have MagSafe at the back. Don't know if it will focus on that because it doesn't like focusing on stuff that's not human related. But it has MagSafe, which is really nice. It has a pretty strong connection. It's easy to disconnect pulling up and down, but pulling straight out, it's a really difficult, really strong connection there. So performance has been really good. I haven't had any issues. It is super quiet. Like I never hear this thing at all. It does get a little warm if I'm, let's say, rendering this video. Once I get it all taken care of, it does get a little warm on the bottom if you're using it on your lap. But it is so quiet. I really think they could have probably ramped the fans up a little bit to maybe get a little bit more performance out of it. But I know Apple people are, at least the few podcasts that are Apple related podcasts that I've listened to, they're real into the real quiet machines. So this thing's super quiet. You don't hear it. My ThinkPad was like a blow dryer at times, depending on what it did. And that was very inconsistent. This one's pretty consistent on when you can barely hear the fans. I mean, it's minor compared to a Windows laptop, or at least the ThinkPads. I've had 4 or 5 different ThinkPads. And they either have the fans off where they're really quiet, or they just go through the roof and are really loud. As far as your inputs, your trackpad, your keyboard, they're really great. Huge trackpad. Easily the best trackpad on the market. I think, if you ask me, in a long shot. Keyboard's good. It's not a ThinkPad good. I still like the one on my X1 Yoga and my P1 Gen 2, which is just a 15-inch work-class workstation laptop. It's not as good as that. It reminds me similar to like a Dell XPS 15, just the way it feels. It doesn't give you the feedback and that feel that you get with a ThinkPad, where you have a little bit more travel. The keys are a little bit more tactile and feeling. Not necessarily like a Macbook keyboard, but they just have a little bit more play in them. Where this is a little bit, it's not the butterfly, but it kind of has that overall gesture feel to it. So the big shiny point I think for this is the screen. It has a Nano IPS, 120 Hz refresh rate, which not very many laptops, at least with this resolution, have that. And makes it difficult to go back and use other screens just because of how good it is. Like, it really has came a long way. I have a fairly cheap like PCI 3, somewhat color accurate LG monitor, and this thing just destroys it, blows it out of the water. I'd hate to see what the Apple XDR display looks like. I mean, it's $5,000-$6,000, but I feel like that's kind of what you get in this little laptop. Same thing with the 14-inch. If you're photo editing at all, I think this is a no-brainer, just because of how, I mean, it's color accurate, it's vibrant, it's crisp, the colors seem correct. The only negative is that if you put this on a horrible display, like both my parents have really cheap cell phones. Some of the pictures look awful on there when you compare them to this, but that's not, that's something, that's their problem, not yours. What else? Battery life is really good. I almost never worry about running out of juice. I'm sure it's 12 or plus hours easily of usage. I have it plugged in a lot, so I don't travel around with it a lot. I use it outside from time to time, but usually we have our toddler out here when I'm out here, so using it outside is difficult to do because of that. So I am kind of curious to see how that, because spring's in now, even though it was 87 yesterday, you almost feel like it's summer. But I am kind of curious to see what it may actually do and how it performs outside. So I'm going to start doing some tests on that as I go forward with things. But battery life has been a non-issue. I feel like you could easily get 10 to 20 hours depending on what you're doing with it. They're known to have, it has I think a 1,000 milliamp battery, or 1,000, basically the highest amount of battery you can put per like the FDA flying guidelines for that. Anything else? The macOS is a little bit hit or miss for me. There's some things I like about it, some things I dislike about it. But that's a preference thing, so I'm not even going to review that. But if you're coming from Windows, make sure that you understand that it's going to be a different field, a different overall. Even setting up my server to connect, it was just a different process than it was on Windows. It took me a little bit of time to get used to. The only negative I've noticed with the operating system is that when I turn it on, flip it open, it turns on immediately, and I log in, use the fingerprint reader, which is nice. All laptops have that now, but the one on here is really nice, reads really well. It does take a little bit to connect to the Wi-Fi, so I've noticed that there's usually a 2, 3, 5 second delay, where previously on my other computers I felt like it was more instant connecting to the Wi-Fi. So that could not even be the laptop's issue, could be our internet. We have a Google Nest Wi-Fi mesh system, so but that's the only thing I've noticed with this, is that it can take that 2 to 5 seconds to connect to Wi-Fi when you first open it up and turn it on. But besides that, I haven't had any issues with it. I'm really happy with the one setup. At some point we will start using this stuff in the basement where you can connect it to, a nicer mouse, keyboard. I just find it's more productive to work on a mouse, keyboard, and a large 27, 30, 32 inch 4K monitor. We'll start using that down the road, but for now this has been an excellent, I would highly recommend it. If you can get it from Apple's outlet direct, I would do that. Save $350, $400 depending on how much they discount it off. Same thing with 14 inch. I'm pretty sure the 14 inch is in the outlet too. You still get one year warranty. You could still get Apple Care, so that's the route I would go. And that's it. If you have any comment, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you have an iPhone, it's really nice to get messaging on these. You can do that with Windows and Android, but it's a pain. It's not as streamlined as this, and it works really, really well. So I do like that. But if you have any comments, questions, leave them below. I'll get them. You probably won't see a review of this up again, probably for another 6 months, but I've been really happy with it. I use it all day, not all day, but off and on throughout the day. For this channel, I do a lot of video editing with it and a lot of photo editing. I've been really, really pleased with it. So that's it. If you have a good rest of the day, weekend, whatever's out there, and I'll see you guys next time.